How you doing, bro? You good?
I'm good. I'm good. I just finished doing like a 6 hour photo shoot
Yeah, I seen you post some stuff on Instagram afterwards. Was that at your place or
at my home, yes, with my three
nice?
sisters.
Look, that was your sister being photographed?
Yeah, three of them.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Are you happy with how they turned out?
absolutely. I can't wait to post them, but it was 1,324 photos, so it's gonna take a while.
That's pretty good. That's a lot.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm not too bad, man. I'm good. Australia's been, I think, really lucky with with what's been going on.
Nice.
Yeah, so I haven't noticed the effects of COVID too much, like I can still surf and we've had classes for like a month now, so Australia hasn't been as badly affected as other places around the world. So I'm definitely looking forward to it going back to, what normal would be, but it hasn't been so detrimental for me anyway. But yeah,
Yeah, unlike here
how's
in New
it
York.
going? Yeah, not like in New York. How's it going? Because I spoke to you like a couple of weeks ago, like when you're on the way to the gym or something, or into the park to
To the
train,
park.
and yeah, and then you were walking past a protest that was happening at the
Right,
time, like a peaceful protest. But
right.
how's it going at the moment?
I think things are coming down right now, even with the protests. There's no rioting happening anymore. Uh,
Mm.
New Yorkers are kind of weird. This country has, this particular city has people from all walks of life and parts of the world. So it's kind of hard to implement rules here.
Mm.
But overall, the numbers are showing that we're actually doing good compared to other
Okay,
states. Yeah.
good news. And is dancing allowed yet? Are people doing shines classes or?
No, I'm not seeing anybody doing any dancing so far. But it's so funny. Yesterday, when I left the park from doing a photo shoot, I drove by a really like commercial street, and there was practically an outside social happening that I never knew existed, and it was jam packed with people not wearing masks, not keeping social distancing. It was reckless.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
Was that in Hyde Park?
that 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 thing was near Astoria Park here in New York.
Okay, I was only recalling like the only park I know in New York is Hyde Park.
Well, there's also Central Park,
Central Park's another big one, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
the park in New
So
York.
so classes can't resume. So I know a lot of people are doing like the online thing, right? Like I know Ernesto and Denise and like Eddie Jr. and I think Yamale, like they're all doing like an
Everybody,
online dance thing and like. But you were
everybody.
teaching online as well. You were teaching online for Tropical Soul, right?
Right, for Tropical Soul, for another company in Guatemala, and then a lot of private classes, and even some group private classes.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you find the interaction through a screen for teaching purposes?
Um, it's not really that different. I do like that person-to-person interaction and feedback, but
Yeah,
other than that, we developed a system that pretty much works for everybody, and it,
yeah.
it worked pretty fun.
Was it nice to reconnect with the Tropical Soul students
Oh,
again
absolutely,
after?
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I love them. They're so fun, easygoing. We got along just fine.
yeah.
Um, they're great people and a great studio.
Mm. That's something that I really find interesting about you is you're such a well-traveled individual, not just a dancer, but you're like it was really nice to have you in Australia for the period that you were here. But then I know that you do a lot of work in Japan, and then you also go to where's Lucia from Costa Rica. So
Costa
you're
Rica.
traveling like all the time for dance, and you have like dance partners like all over the planet, like, and
Yeah.
then you go back to New York and do your thing in New York.
Yep.
How did you find it in Australia when you were living here?
I found that the students were eager to learn. And unlike some students here in the States, they're very respectful of the instructors. They don't really have an attitude. And I found that to be refreshing, pretty much kind of the way it is in Japan. The students are very respectful. They don't talk back.
Yeah,
But then again, I'm not like disrespecting people either or
yeah,
talking
yeah.
down to them. But sometimes you gotta show them a little tough love. Some people cannot handle that, and they end up talking back to you.
Mm.
But that was not the case.
Do you feel like your military experience Has that sort of influenced your teaching methods a little
To
bit?
to some degree, yes, because in the military they do get in your face and they do call you names and they do make you try to make you bring you down.
Yeah.
But what I took from it is that if I explain something multiple times and you're still not doing it correctly, even though I broke it down in different ways, what we end up doing is either push-ups or sit-ups or squats, something that would ultimately
In dance
benefit you
classes.
anyway. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've had entire groups of people drop with me and do the push-ups because I do it with them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It would be a different dynamic if you were just telling them to do it and you stood like this with your arms folded, like
Yeah.
waiting for them to finish.
And Josie from Sydney would tell you from Tropical Soul that whenever we were having rehearsals for our professional partnership, if I messed up more than 3 times with the same thing, I would be dropping to do push-ups.
Really? You
Yeah.
punish yourself?
Oh yes. You got to do what you preach.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
I imagine that's got something to do with why so many people in Australia loved you because I think everywhere you went, everywhere you were teaching, where you were competing or performing, or when you were at a congress or at a festival, everyone's like, "Oh, there's Franklin." Like, not only because you're a nice guy, but you're also a really good social dancer.
Thank
So
you.
I laughed a lot when when I think it was one of the first years you came to Australia for the World Salsa Solo, and you were being like not harassed, but you were like a mother duckling with ducklings following you around like for social dancing, and we came off the floor at the same time, and you were like wiping your brow, and you're like, man, it's worse than China.
It is at the end of the day, it is a physical activity, so it is tiring, but it's very flattering when that happens, and
Mm.
it has happened many times in many places, and I love it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think you're really well suited for it because the style of dancing in New York is like you go to a social and they're playing mambo like all day, all
Oh yeah.
night, like it's non-stop. Like I was coming from Europe to America when I came over last year when I came and stayed with you and we went social dancing. I was like, man, like they don't play any salsa romantica. There's no break. Like it's even the cha-cha is punchy. Like you don't
Oh
get a
yeah.
break like the whole time.
Oh yeah. And here they don't tend to mix like kizomba and bachata in the same rooms. Now the norm here in New York City is that they have 2 rooms. So if you
Right.
stick to the salsa room, the mambo room, that's what you're going to get until we close, which is typically around 5, 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I had such a nice time getting like a taste of the New York style of social dancing because you guys have some incredible dancers there, hey?
I think it's because we have so many socials and events happening at the same time that people are constantly practicing.
Mm.
So that really enables them to really get comfortable with social dancing. And ultimately, that's why a lot of people enjoy coming here.
Mm. Is that where you started dancing in New York?
Well, funny story is that I started dancing when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan with the US Navy. And
Right.
I was dancing on one, but it was really 3, 3.5, 5.25.
Okay.
And then when I got out of the military, when I came back to New York, is when the recession happened, where the economy completely plummeted, and
Yeah.
that's when I started dancing and consequently photography.
Right. Okay. And
So
then
yeah,
and then once you got a taste for it in Japan, like that's when you fell in love with it, or was that later?
absolutely. Although I've always danced culturally, Dominicans, I'm from Dominican Republic, for those who don't know. I was born and raised there, and then I moved to New York in '96 when I was about 12 years old.
Hmm.
And culturally, we were dancing over there, merengue and bachata. Once I came to New York is when I had my first experience with salsa, but I didn't take it seriously. Went to the Navy. It was my only connection to my own culture because I was in other countries like Japan, Pakistan. And
Yeah.
then that's what got me really hooked. And then when I came back to New York is when I went to a school here called Mambo Rabo in 2008.
Who was the director of that school?
That was Ruby Espinosa, who she had trained with Eddie Torres prior.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you say that Ruby was your biggest influence as you started learning?
Oh, absolutely. she was very encouraging, very positive. She would not get mad if we made mistakes in the rehearsals or whatever, and then she ended
So
up
no
promoting me.
push-ups from Ruby.
No, I actually, after I became part of one of the team members, I was making people drop whenever we made mistakes.
Okay, so
But they
that's
loved
definitely
it.
a Franklin-inspired training technique.
Oh yeah, oh yes.
Okay, and was it through Ruby's company that you started competing?
No, through Ruby, I was exposed a lot through performances and teaching at the studio.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I met Anya Kasevman a couple of years down the road that that she said you should get into competition, and I was completely against competition. Funny story, huh?
So how did you meet Anya?
I met Anya. Well, I've known of her through video, but I
Yeah.
officially met her in Toronto, Canada, with Luis Aguilar at the time. She was partnered with him, and I was still dancing with Mambo Bravo, the company that I started here in New York. And
Yep.
I fell head over heel over her and him dancing.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to New York is when we connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what did she direct you into initially? Was it freestyle competition or choreography?
She just told me get into competition, whatever you want to do, whether that's going to be a solo or it's going to be pro-am or professional or whatever. So I started off with the professional with Lucia, who resides in Costa Rica.
You started competing in professional?
Yeah.
Man,
And
that's insane.
the thing about competition, it is very true. I'm not saying that to be cliche or anything. In
Yeah.
competition, you're never going to be ready. You can spend a whole year rehearsing with your partner day in and day out, and I don't think you'll get to the point where you say, yeah, I'm ready. You always feel something is missing. And if you are one of those few exceptions that, yeah, you feel ready, then, good for you. But once you say you'll never be ready, just go for it. That's all I needed.
Wow, okay.
And so we went there.
Straight into professional.
Yeah.
Man.
We went to Trinidad and Tobago. We were hired as artists to put on a show and to teach. And consequently, they had a competition. So we were competing against our own friends and the people from Trinidad and Tobago. Mm-hmm. And that first competition that I did with Lucia, we placed second.
Wow.
And to me, that was all the validation that I needed to keep going forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what I think is so impressive is that you maintain partnerships with dancers in different countries to your own, but then you're still goal orientated and you're still smashing goals with dancers that are a day's flight away or something like that.
Right. I think the reason behind that, it's not just because of me. I've been lucky enough to find all these women that are wonderful, super dedicated, with incredible work ethics. I cannot say anything negative about Lucia, Mari Yogo, or Josie, because those are the ones that I've sort of done professional competitions in, like non-competitions, and all three have incredible work ethics. And at the end of the day, they take their dancing very seriously. So. We can always say or agree that we know what good dancing looks like. So because of that, I think is why we were all successful.
So your work ethic must be incredible, because before, for example, we've seen each other at the summit a few times over the years, and you being in New York and Lucia being in Costa Rica, how much time together do you have before you put a routine together, before you compete?
Well, this one is going to scare a lot of people. The real answer, and I'm being 100% honest and genuine about this, Lucia and I see each other one day a year, and we don't rehearse. We go straight into the competition.
This is for your freestyle stuff. And how many times world champion are you now in freestyle?
With Lucia, I've won 6 or 7. With Mari, I got 1, and with Josie, I got another 1.
It's incredible. It's amazing. It obviously has a lot to do with your chemistry as dancers. So So I don't think it will be possible for people that didn't have a good dance chemistry to be able to meet once a year, the day before a competition, and be able to deliver at the level that you're doing. But what about when you have a choreography with someone? How much time do you have to prep a choreography before you perform?
That also depends. If we know we don't have a lot of time, like I said, you're never ready. So we
Mm,
rehearse it as much as we can. For example, the one that you saw with me and Josie in Australia, the most recent one,
yeah.
that we ended up taking first with that choreography, we literally put that together in 7 days. And yes, we were stressed because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's not so much the reputation, but for the lack of a better word, I'm going to use that word.
Yeah.
She has a reputation to upkeep, and so do I. She runs the studio, and she cannot afford to go on any stage and look a mess, and neither can I.
Yeah.
But I think relying on our training and experience really helped us push through the uncomfortable moment.
Definitely. And not only did you have you've got these routines where you're putting yourself out there as a professional, but you also have freestyle events, pro-am choreographies, teams, solo. Like it's not just like one thing and then you go, oh yeah, sweet, I'm done now. Like it's a whole weekend of work.
Absolutely. So tying back to what you asked earlier, as far as my students in other countries or other cities, for example, the ones in Japan, I usually go on average between 3 to 4 times a year to Japan on an average of 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks that I go, I break down the entire choreography, which I'm usually making it as we go. It's not something
Yeah.
that I pre-plan and I bring it with me.
Hmm.
So that's all they learn, and I put no pressure on them, but I am very strict as to this is the correct timing and this is where you need to be at this point. Great. The second time around, I come back and we start cleaning and adding a little bit of styling. And the third time around, we usually perform it somewhere quickly. And I don't tell them that we're going to perform it. In fact, I come up to Japan, they think we're just having another rehearsal. And then I tell them, oh, by the way, in 5 days we're performing this. And they're like, what? And because they have that drive and they don't have the luxury of really taking their time, I really have a lot of admiration and respect for my students, because it's not easy to have your partner little 10,000 kilometers away and only having on average 6 weeks to get ready. So we do that.
It's super high pressure scenario.
Absolutely. So then the plan is that we always want to arrive at the competition minimum 2 to 3 days before we actually have to compete. And then over the course of those days, we rehearse the choreography about a total of 3 hours with everybody combined. So I'll grab one, run the choreography, don't take a break, grab the other one, run that choreography, and so on and so on. And that also helps me with knowing that you can't just get used to this choreography. You got more coming up. So it takes a lot of focus.
Like not only focus but stamina. Like if you can't, I know Billy Fajardo's a massive advocate of this. He's like, if I see you huffing and puffing after your routine, I was like, I'm not a happy man. Like you need to be able to do that 10 times in a row before you're tired.
Well, Father Billy is a big influence as to how I approach dancing and presentation. His posture is very good. He respects the dance floor. He commands presence, and he really caters for his students. Because even on the earlier years when he was running the competitions, including IHSC, the International Hustle and Salsa competition, he would go out on the floor, being a judge, being an event organizer, and still competing with students. And you would never catch Billy running out of air.
Yeah.
So I said, if that man can do it, and he's much older than I am, then I can do it. And what goes behind that is trying to eat healthy, being hydrated, and not really consuming a lot of alcohol, and obviously no drugs.
Yep. And have you noticed a change? Have you noticed a change in yourself since you transitioned to a vegetarian diet?
To be honest, no. I haven't had any fluctuation of energy, whether it's either up or down. I never actually lost muscle weight. But I do feel better having made that decision. And I enjoy food now more than I used to before.
It's a funny thing, hey, when
Yeah,
you remove some elements or some certain ingredients, it opens up more options for you in a way.
yeah.
I found it really interesting as well. And you still feel like you feel good energy wise, like it hasn't affected your sleep or your performance or anything like this.
You saw me competing recently at the World Salsa Summit. I had
Hmm.
already gone vegetarian, and on Sunday alone, I danced 125 times, and I came out strong.
Yeah.
And prior
Oh,
to that, I danced another probably 100 times.
and that's in freestyle mainly, isn't it? Because in at the summit you have like so many different categories. Uh, we're not at that level yet, but you guys have so many more competitors in America. So you have like amateur beginner, amateur intermediate, amateur advanced, something like that.
Right. That
And
is
then it's
correct.
and then it's yeah, and then you have that, but then for above 30 or above 40 or above
Over 40 and
45 or
over
above
50.
yeah.
And then we have the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. So Sunday alone was a tough day, but I still did it, and I think a lot of it comes down to training at the gym,
Yeah.
the rehearsals. I don't go and take it easy. I actually go and work hard,
Mm.
eating healthy, staying hydrated, and keeping a positive attitude.
Do you do anything specifically in the gym to help with your dancing stamina?
So far with the stamina, no. I think I practice that on the actual rehearsals. But
Yeah.
as far as at the gym goes, I'm not the type of person who's gonna grab weights and do static exercises. I don't know if you know Daniel Enska. He used to
No.
be the one of the owners with a toy at the time of Baila Society.
Okay.
It was actually a very recognized and respected dance company here. And
Hmm.
his method of training is to use your body and always maximize the range of motion. So everything I do has to do with animal movements and just really body weight.
Mm.
And
I
that
remember
helps.
when we were training together at the gym in New York and you were doing like bear crawls and like so
Right.
that was like your warm up. That was like all these functional exercises. And is that in an attempt to not compromise flexibility or function of the muscles?
It's really for mobility.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm gonna have to do the same exercise basically through a choreography or the same moves, and I want
Yeah.
to be able to do that without making it look like I'm putting an effort into it.
Mm.
So that's really the reason I train that way.
Mm. It's definitely working for you. Like I think you uh I can't remember when I first seen your Instagram page, the Nude Yorker, but I'm trying to think of when it was. I can't remember if it was when we'd met overseas and then you mentioned it then, or if I was like scrolling and I found like a tag and I'm like, oh, is that Franklin? Like, like I'm not sure if it was you or not, but I think the other element of artistry that you're so amazing at is photography.
Thank you.
And I know when you you asked on Instagram, should I open another account for this, and this, and then you laugh because you're like, okay, now I have 6 Instagram accounts, so maybe I need to concentrate on something else. But like one of the ones that I'm really impressed by is your Nude Yorker account. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where do you get inspiration to? Or how did it start? What made you think, okay, I want to try something different?
Funny story. I'm gonna try to make it very short, but I was in a
No, you can
competition.
you can extend it. Spare no detail.
I was at a competition hosted by Billy Fajardo and Katie Marlowe in Florida, which was IHSC, the International Hustle and Salsa. And I had competed all weekend long, and it was Sunday, and I already finished. I went to my room, took a shower. We were supposed to all have dinner, and there was this beautiful sunlight coming through the window, and my camera was there, and I was wearing underwear, by the way. So I grabbed the camera. I grabbed the camera, and then I took a photo through a mirror. I have like a really big size mirror, and I loved the results. And I just put the camera away and I walked and I went to dinner. Then I came back and reviewed it, and I'm like, wow, this is something maybe I should keep doing it. So that started in 2015, but I did not go public with that until like 2 or 3 years later. So every
Right.
time I travel, I would go to these beautiful hotels with beautiful window light, which is my preferred lighting, by the way.
Hmm.
And since I was often by myself, I didn't have anybody to practice on, then I would do it myself. And I ended up learning so much about myself, my own intimacy, my own sensuality, how I fit in the spaces that I was in, and understanding lights and shadows and shapes. And on top of that, the cherry is that I got to practice my craft, which is photography.
Mm.
And then I had a good 2.5 years worth of photos, and then I decided to just go ahead and open an account, but I did not tell anybody.
Okay, you kept it quiet.
I kept it quiet, and obviously one person found it, and that's it. That was the end
Mm.
of the beginning, or the beginning of the end.
Why did you keep it private initially?
Ultimately, I'm Hispanic, and Latinos, Hispanic people, they tend to be very conservative when it comes to nudity.
Yep.
Part of it is because they practice religion, they're
Yep.
Catholics, Christians, and so on. So I knew that I would get some resistance with that. And on top of that,
Mm.
because as a dancer, I teach younger generations, I
Hmm.
also predicted that somebody might have an issue with me being that exposed while still
Mm.
teaching their children.
Hmm.
So that's why I kept it quiet for a while.
Mm. And now I think you probably still experience some maybe intolerance to the craft or to your art now. Like I know most people and like your friends and family are super accepting and very supportive of like your artistic vision and what you're doing. But then do you still get resistance occasionally?
I think right now the only resistance I'm getting is through social media platforms. They have decided that whatever I'm doing is not within their community guidelines. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's offensive. So I posted once on Facebook, and I guess somebody reported it. I got banned
Yeah.
for like a whole day.
Yeah.
I was super upset. I waited a couple of weeks. I posted another one. I got banned for 3 days. And then I posted it again, got banned for a week. And then the last one for a whole month. And that's when I said, okay, I'm not gonna beat the system. So
And that was
right
on
now,
that was on Facebook alone, right?
that was on Facebook alone. On Instagram, they have removed my photos, and I have received warnings saying that they might delete my account
Yep.
if I keep violating the community guidelines. But it hasn't happened for a while now. And on top of that, I also made my account private.
Yep. Do you think that's because people are actively reporting your account, or is that like when they have people scrolling through content and someone finds it and they
I
think
think
it's not
it's
appropriate?
I think it's two. I think it's the algorithm that is trained to pick up on nudity, especially.
Yeah.
I feel that the male nudity is definitely more targeted to be taken down.
Mm.
Um, and the other is people reporting you, because the sad reality is people see you naked and they think that you automatically are trying to send a message that you're either want sex or you want something along those lines. And the moment you shut them down, they take it personal and then they report you.
Mm.
So that's what's happened.
Mm. It's a shame, but I think on one hand you have people that are like this, and they I don't know, it's a little bit petty in my opinion because
And
people
childish.
they don't have to interact with what they're seeing; they can just leave it, and then
Right.
but they choose not to, and they make a big deal about it. But then on the other side, you have a lot of people that are really supportive, and I know from first-hand experience because I've joined you for one of your New Yorker photo shoots that you did in Sydney, which got posted on that huge photography page. By the way, congratulations,
Right. Thank you.
the series from that one. And it's not like that at all. Like I really enjoyed joining you for that process to see how you line things up, and then and then in the cold at like 3 in the morning, you've got to run around naked to
Gotta do
take
what you gotta
photos
do.
and then come back and check the shot. Oh no, I should do something like this a bit differently. Like,
Right.
do you have any funny stories that you'd be comfortable sharing about like making sure you get like a good shot for this account?
Well, I've done so many sessions literally all around the world because I really love including environments in my photography. Um, but Thankfully, I've never been fully caught by anyone.
Hmm.
One time in Cuba, I almost got caught by a couple that was not from there. They were from another country, but they were with a little girl, and that's what made it uncomfortable for me.
Yep.
But I always have a plan. I always find a way to try to stay hidden, and if I cannot stay hidden, then I try to have the underwear or anything near me. So all I have to do
Yeah.
is wrap it around and pretend nothing's happening, which is what I did on that particular occasion. But I've shot naked here in New York City, and people drove by, but it's New York. They're like, oh, okay. Like, we see everything here. We really do. So,
Yeah, I remember when we were walking down the street together going somewhere, and then someone was like yelling like hysterically, like screaming and carrying on, and I was like this, and you're like, no, 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 don't engage, don't look at
no,
them, like
exactly.
keep moving.
So yeah, like at least 30 people passed by where I was taking photos, but they realized that I'm not doing anything wrong.
Inappropriate.
I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm just taking photos, and I happen to be in the nude. It's not something you see
Yeah.
every day.
Mm.
And another one was when I took a photo on the subway station here in New York, the underground, the metro.
Uh-huh.
Um, I took the photos. They were pretty cool, but we got spotted by the employees. But thankfully, they were at the other end of the platform, and they were walking towards me because they were going to say something. And thank goodness the train arrived and we got on. And right before they came to me, the doors closed and it took off. My
Oh
heart.
man, you're
Oh my
lucky.
God, my heart was like this.
So you got on the subway naked then?
No, no. Well, yes, but I had everything with me, and I just because it was late at night. There was not really a lot of people in the car, so it was funny.
Who were you with?
I was with a friend of mine and also a student, Maggie. That's the first lady I
Okay.
started doing prom with. And another crazy story with the New Yorker is that in Iceland, even though it was summertime,
Yeah.
I did not think this one through because I'll tell you in a second. I decided to do one where I was literally putting blue paint all over my body, and there was a waterfall
Yeah.
behind me. And I started thinking, well, you know, now that I have this paint, I can't put my clothes on because I'm going to ruin it, and I definitely cannot get in the car like this because I'm gonna ruin the rental. So I had to jump in below freezing water. It was not frozen because it was moving actively, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's been the coldest I've been in my whole life. I didn't think about it. I dove right in head first, and I'm trying to wash it off, and it's not coming off. Literally 8 seconds later, my body went into shock, and I
Oh
couldn't move my
shit.
legs. Thankfully, it was not so deep. I was able to reach for a rock and climb on it. The pain was so bad that I couldn't move. And eventually I ended up grabbing like a cloth and wash it off. But that was a lesson learned.
Could you imagine being taken in a foreign country to an emergency department naked, painted blue, but, and then trying to explain to the doctors and medical staff there how that happened?
Oh, that would be easy because I have a whole like photo library of that. But this is why I said I didn't think it through. There was no hospital in sight.
Oh
We're
man.
talking the middle of nowhere in Iceland.
Because
So when you're
Iceland's got quite a lot of that sort of terrain, right? Like you need to rent a car to get to like mountains or geysers or like rivers
Yep,
or like any of that sort of stuff.
yep. So we if something had gone wrong, that would have been it.
Yeah, you could have been in really trouble, like, a lot of trouble there.
Another scary one, but it was not so bad. It was in Utah, here in the United States. This is this state here called Utah, which is beautiful. And I remember we went kind of in December, no, January. That's when it was. We went, and you have to go through this river to kind of go through the canyon, which is gorgeous. And the water was super, super cold. The bottom line is the water was up to my thighs, and I couldn't take the pain anymore because I was in the water trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get the perfect shot. And I had pants on and everything. By the time I made it to the car dry, I'm not kidding you, my pants and my shoes were frozen solid in ice. As
Wow.
soon as I got off the water, it was so cold with the wind. I couldn't take off my boots. I was struggling. My friends had to pump the heat for the car to kind of melt it a little bit, take it off. And 40 minutes later is when I could feel my legs again.
Wow. That's
Yeah, I'm a little
scary.
crazy. I'm a little crazy.
But worth it, right? Worth it.
Yeah, yeah, I love my photos.
There's something that I think is really impressive about you, and to my knowledge, you've interviewed more professional dancers and artists than anyone else I know. Like one of your photography pages on Instagram is literally saturated with world champions and international artists. Like, what's that like?
It's really, really amazing, and it makes me a little emotional, but it's really flattering when you are. Well, hello back there.
My brother, he can't hear us at the moment. I've got
Uh,
the pods in.
but it's really flattering when people trust you and they respect your craft
Yeah.
to always come to you for their photography needs.
Mm.
And even if it's not them, they get sponsorship through somebody else, but they immediately come to me, and that's really rewarding.
Because you've done a few sponsored photo shoots, right? For like shoe brands and
Yeah,
like
with Virgil Shoes, with Franco, Jose Bota.
a lot. Are you getting a pair of shoes every now and then because of this?
Well, I still get full sponsorship through Virgil Shoes.
Uh-huh. I've
So
seen your
anytime,
wardrobe. There's a lot of shoes in there.
oh yeah. So anytime that I need shoes, I do contact her, and she's very kind, and her husband Victor,
Yeah.
and then they send me whatever I need. There was one time where the shoes were supposed to come here to New York before the summit 3 years ago,
Mm.
and I told them, guys, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wear something else because it didn't arrive. What they did is that they overnighted to the competition. Like
Wow.
I can't ask for more than that. So that was really
Pretty
nice.
dedicated, hey?
Yeah.
And their shoes are amazing. Like I've
Oh
worn
yeah.
them before. Like you lent me a pair of shoes and they were incredible. They were great.
Absolutely. I still have
And
shoes
they
in here that I've used in all my competition, and they're still running 5 years later.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So when you're photographing like people like Declan and Natalia and Harold and Regan and Karen and Ricardo, and when you're photographing these sorts of artists, do you get really like sort of inspired about what they're capable of doing and then what that means for you as a photographer? Because Harold can hold like Regan with one hand above his head and just hold that like, and then you're like, okay guys, like should we try like this or do something like that? Or is it more them saying, oh, can we do this, this and this? Like how much influence do you have on how the shoot goes?
Oh, 100%. Thankfully, all these people, they trust me. They trust my vision and my artistic direction. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, I always like to involve everybody into the photo shoot process. And I always ask them, is there something that you want to do that you haven't done? Or maybe you want me to direct you with something that you haven't done before. But these are professional dancers with multiple championship titles.
Mm.
I just let them be them because at the end of the day, they know their brand and they know what they want to represent or how they want to be represented. So
Hmm.
I just photograph them that way. All I ask them to do is within whatever pose they do is to give me a little micro change so
Hmm.
that we don't have the same photo 20 frames later.
Hmm. And a lot of these photo shoots happen at like obscene hours in the morning because it's because it's not like they're in town for like a week or something and
Oh,
you have all this
sorry,
time. Like,
sorry to cut you off, but Curtis Willocks was one of my professors when I was doing my bachelor's degree in photography at the Fashion Institute of Technology. So, hello, Curtis.
well done on creating a good student, sir, or inspiring a
Oh,
good student, rather.
yeah.
So, like,
So you were saying?
yeah, I've been with you at the summit in America, and it's like it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and it's because you're so well known and you have this reputation for delivering very quality work. You're constantly being asked by artists and dancers say, oh, we need to speak to this guy, like we need to book a time slot, and then they're like, oh, so when are you available? And because you're dancing 100+ times per day in the competition, you're like, oh well, I've got an availability at 2 in the morning. Is that okay for you? Or
Well, but
three in the
so
morning?
are
Or
they too. But that's the thing, there are two.
yeah.
And
So
and
it's
and what happens is throughout the day, nobody can do it because they're either rehearsing or they're actually competing with their students.
yeah.
And then by the time it's nighttime where they have to get ready for their own professional showcases, they get really glammed up and they look nice,
Hmm.
they put their best costumes on. So what happens? We prefer to do it right after because they're already made up, they have nothing else to do. and they
Hmm.
know that I'm a very fast shooter. So literally
Yep.
20, 25 minutes, as you were there many times, you get the shot
Yeah.
and you're done.
Yeah. It's
Time is everything.
yeah, it's really important. But then I think because you did a lot of photo shoots at the summit, at the old summit, at the Hilton Hotel, like the previous venue for the competition, and then since the
Deauville.
Deville, sorry, yeah, the Deville Hotel, the really old one on the beach, and then they had a fire there or some
Yeah,
sort of like accident happened, and then they had to
it was
move
the
the hotel.
yeah. It was a hurricane first, excuse me, that affected them, and then they had a fire. And because they couldn't finish construction in time, Billy was forced to move the competition to
Yeah, he
their
had to move the
current
venue.
location.
Yeah, and then the current location, and he's done it there for a couple of years. Is that right?
I think the
You know,
third one now.
third years,
I think we're in the
third
third
three
one, yeah.
years, and then that so all of the familiar locations that you would normally shoot at the previous like venue, you're like, okay, we need to find a new place. We're gonna go scouting. You know, I was so new to it. And you're like, okay, what about in this like overpass? And there's this here. Like, I'm just gonna check with a torch to make sure there's no like raccoons or anything that might attack
Right.
dancers like halfway through a photo shoot. Like, there's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize.
No. And ultimately, I think so. Here's the thing: the military definitely comes in handy for a lot of aspects of my life. And one thing that always teaches to be observant, to always be watching out for danger, to
Hmm.
know your strategy if something goes wrong. And that is something that I have not been able to turn off even 10, 12 years after separating from the military. So what I did
Hmm.
over the years is to turn that, I call it an issue. I
Hmm.
turned it into a blessing because now I'm always constantly looking for a location where I can do photography. So the moment I got to the new hotel, I'm like, photo shoot there, photo shoot here. This dancer goes there, this dancer goes here,
Yeah.
and I think that's definitely helped a lot.
Do you draw inspiration from any other photographers that you follow or see?
We always want to say no. I don't. I don't draw inspiration from anybody. Blah blah blah. No. I've had some photographers who I admire over the years. And actually, one of them ended up being my mentor while I was doing my master's degree in photography, which I
Hmm.
was shocked because I never met this guy. He didn't even knew I existed, but I messaged him. I explained that if he was to mentor me, that my school would pay him, and he agreed. Like even before I mentioned the money, and his name is Van Wong,
Hmm.
incredible photographer. But right now, my favorite photographer, he's in China. I can't think of his name now, but I'll send it to you privately. His work is incredible.
Hmm.
But ultimately, what inspires me are locations and sometimes the wardrobe.
Because some of your locations are like they're like something out of like another world. Like I know you did when you did your desert trip, like with Lucia and like that, like some of the settings are like incredible. And then you had your Salt Lake photo shoot with a parachute, and then the stuff in Iceland on a plane, like a crash
Right.
landed plane somewhere, like all these different locations, which has probably led to why you've been to so many countries. I think you're like 50 plus or something at the moment, right?
54 at the time. And
54
yes,
now?
yeah, 54 right now. And
Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of time that I spend on social media and on the internet finding locations that I think would be suitable for my project. And sometimes they don't have an address. So then what do? I try to find a location that is near that address and I try to get the coordinates. Then I look through a map because I studied how to get coordinates in the military.
Hmm.
Then I can usually pinpoint where it is and I enter the coordinates manually on a GPS. And it's been pretty successful.
Wow.
Some
And
of
that
these locations,
probably,
yeah,
I was going to say, it probably allows you to get really unique locations because probably a lot of people don't go to that extreme to find a
no.
place.
For example, one of the photo shoots that I did in Iceland, after flying for almost 6 hours from New York to Iceland, and then about a 2 hour process to get the car rental and getting food, we literally drove nonstop 13 hours to the first location.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are not willing to make that sacrifice.
And then a lot of your traveling can be driven by like one project. So you go in and out of Iceland in a week for this one shot, this one opportunity. I feel like I'm quoting an Eminem song.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like a level of dedication that a lot of people probably don't ever get to, because I feel like a lot of people, from my perspective, not from a professional way, as on the way, but you're going there specifically for the photos.
You know, adding to that, the one that I did in Namibia, which is a country that kind of has a border with South Africa. The main shot for that was the desert, and then the
Yep.
abandoned town, and then the one with the tree branches coming from the dry lake. So I literally went to that country for that project, nothing else. Consequently, I ended up loving the country, but that
Yep.
was the main reason for going to that. And touching back to what you said earlier, which I'm glad you were there. A lot of people don't believe that I take my own photos, but you were there to witness that I set up my camera, that I do the
Yeah.
composition, and that I set the focus to the point where I want it to be. And sometimes, you know, it fails, but for the most part, I've gotten pretty good at it.
Mm.
And what people don't know is that it took me about 3 weeks of nonstop searching to find the ideal location.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my scouting, I found plenty of locations that I love to shoot in. But what happens? Either a lot of people were visiting, or a
Mm.
lot of tourists, or there were security cameras, or something
Mm-hmm.
that could have prevented me from doing it. So that location that we went to was the perfect place.
Mm. Mm. You you get to work with a lot of dancers as a mentor and as like a teacher, and then like as an aside from that, you get to because of like your dancing networks, that's allowed a lot of photographers to approach you for work from a photography perspective. Do you feel like you want to continue doing that? Because did I did I hear somewhere that you retired from competition? Did that happen?
Yes, I announced it
Yeah, you
officially
retired.
after the summit, this past summit. Yes, from competition, yes. It's
Okay, and
been
that's from professional
eight
from professional
years,
competing, or we still do pro-ams?
everything, competition, done.
Okay.
It's been 8 years
What are you
nonstop,
hoping? What are you
no
hoping to
break.
move into?
It's,
Yeah.
I'm still
Sorry,
want
there's
to
a little bit of a
continue
lag.
dancing and performing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to keep teaching and performing and doing workshops and private classes, but
Yeah.
also the what is it? Give more time to my photography business, because I officially
Yeah.
launched it as a business in the state of New York 1 year ago.
Yeah.
So I need to dedicate more time to that.
Hmm.
Yes, sir.
And from a dancing perspective, obviously you could still travel and get dancing work. Would you still go and train students and choreograph for students?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I can actually, as a matter of fact, I just got a request from Mari students in Japan that they want a competition choreography, and I'm already getting started.
Great.
What I don't want to
Yeah.
be is a part of that system where you're so involved in this process. It's very draining physically and mentally.
Mm,
And then you go to these competitions, and by the time you leave the competition, you're not even a human being anymore. You're completely
yeah.
exhausted, and I am kind of done with that.
Hmm. Yeah. I know what you mean. If you had to give dancers who want to compete, if you had to give competitors 3 tips about improving their dancing, what 3 tips would you give them?
The first one, even though it might not make sense, is getting to competition. And the reason behind that is that because you have a competition, let's say in 2, 3 months or maybe longer, then you have no time to be fooling around, and that's gonna make you seek more help, either through private classes or through online classes, or whatever way works for the person. They're gonna
Mm,
seek help from other professionals, and that's going to help them. Second, always keep practicing your social dancing. Not
Hmm.
necessarily because you might get into the freestyle portion of the competition, but because practicing your craft as often as possible. There's no going wrong with that.
Hmm.
And keep taking classes from multiple people, not just one.
Hmm.
Those three: get into competition, social dance, take classes from multiple people.
Mm. Do you feel like competitors need to have mentors or like people that are overseeing their progress?
Yes, and it's okay to have more than one, and you can
Yeah.
switch them if you cannot afford to have more than one.
Mm.
For example, my mentor that is pretty fixed, even though I don't work with her all the time, is Anya.
Yeah.
And then whenever I have a doubt with something, I either run it by Mari in Japan or with Lucia in Costa Rica.
Hmm.
So yes, definitely should have mentors.
Mm. And people that are not just giving you advice about what you should or shouldn't do, but people that can check in with you to see how you're going progress wise.
Right. Well, ultimately that's what it is. You make a choreography,
Yeah.
and whenever you feel ready, you share it
Yeah.
with them, and they give you feedback. So
Okay.
it's always good to have that.
And it's not something that is limited by time or distance anymore because the world's so connected via social media. So
Exactly.
you can literally get in touch with anyone.
Exactly. Even
Mm.
Mari and I, like Mari right now is working on her new solo, and she sent it to me for feedback. And what
Yeah.
do? I look at it and I give her feedback. Lucia does it. Lucia, who's won like 11 championships, she still checks in with me. So we all need that. At the end of the day, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what level you are or how accomplished you may be. You should always be humble enough to request not the approval, but the feedback of another peer.
Mm. Because I feel like in competition, there's always going to be some element of bias. So the more perspectives that you get will ultimately benefit you, right?
Right. Absolutely. Because not every judge in any panel of competitions in our community is going to have the same opinion as the one next to them.
Mm, absolutely.
So if you can get your opinion of everybody, but you still need to find your own center,
Hmm.
then yes, always go for it.
Mm. Do you feel like there's a platform for you to move into judging more competitions in the future?
I believe so. Yeah. But the thing is with competition and judging is that it's expensive at the end of the day, and promoters that want to bring somebody uh, who's gonna draw a crowd to their event,
Hmm.
and somebody who's respected in what they do. But I think there is, because
Mm.
even Billy has put me to judge several times in other competitions. Not at the summit, obviously, because I'm always competing there. And I've
Correct.
judged in Japan several times, and I judged in Vietnam
Hmm.
and some other countries. So yeah, I believe there is.
Mm.
There's definitely there's definitely that option.
Mm. Because America's definitely not short of competition, right? You guys have so many comps in the US.
Not only the U.S. and Canada too.
Oh yeah, okay. I didn't know Canada had a very
So
big
when you,
competing scene. I thought all the Canadians were coming south.
oh no, when you say America, you're correct. The entire America is into competition. South
Yeah.
America, Central, and Northern. So yeah, Canada. There's four competitions that I used to go every year. There was the one in Calgary.
Hmm.
There was the one in Toronto, and there's another one. Oh, there's three, and then the one in Montreal.
Okay.
So every year, without a doubt, I was going to Canada, and it was big competitions, almost the same size as the summit.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we were in the rooms for like 14, 16 hours. Not as long in terms of days, because the summit is
Yep.
a gigantic competition.
It's like
But
a
as
week
far
long.
as yeah, as far as the days go in the ones in Canada, yeah, there were long days too.
Mm. Because Canada's got some pretty incredible, like some amazing dancers are coming out of Canada. Like a few years ago, before he moved to Australia and became Australian, like they had Mario. Like Mario is a 10 times
Oh,
world champion. They've got Harold and Regan, who are multi-world champions in bachata cabaret. You've got Adriano and Samantha, who I think Adriano now is a 9 times world champion. He's 3 years undefeated in men's solo. Like, and then there's so many other really good dancers. There's Patrick and Scarlett. Like, Canada's got some like top quality artists over there. Hey,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you also have teams, not just individuals, but you also have teams that come from Canada that are they're just mind blowing. They're actually higher often here in the United States for their shows. And on top of that, I don't know why, there are dancers that I've seen in Calgary for the Calgary Salsa Congress that I was left speechless with their level of talent and execution. Like these are people up there, but for some reason they're not as popular. But yeah, they have incredible dancers in Canada.
And one thing to Canada's credit, a few years ago when there was Team Canada versus the big showdown was the New York Movement, and it was close. Hey, like the New York Movement won. They had such an incredible routine, and they consistently deliver like every year. Like that group of dancers are really, really special. But then Mario, Adriano, Harold, Patrick, Scarlett, Samantha. I can't remember all the girls. I know the guys because I watch a lot of their stuff, like from a male competition perspective. But Team Canada, who all live in different parts of Canada, got together like before the competition and put together a routine that nearly rivaled the New York Movement. It's incredible.
Right. Right, which is what a lot of people never saw. It's true, exactly what you said. These are working professionals who are flying pretty much every weekend to another part of the world, and they live in different cities, and they would meet at least once or twice a month and rehearse it, and to still come out and put a choreography that places them in second. That's incredible. That's
really incredible. Do you get really passionate when you see other New Yorkers like dominating at the competition? Like, do you feel really proud to be a New Yorker when you see that?
Yeah, yes. The bottom line is yes, because New Yorkers are always very hungry and they're always innovative. They're always trying different things. For example, La Fuerza, which is run by Fausto, the New York movement, they're always reinventing something that if you notice, the next year is always inspired other dancers to do the same thing in their choreographies, including music choice. So yes, being a New Yorker makes me proud.
There was something funny that Billy mentioned when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he said if a team like the Movement or Ernesto and Denise or like someone comes out, Karen and Ricardo, and they win a division with one song, he goes, I know I'm going to hear that song 100 times next year because everyone's going to use the same song for their choreography.
There it is. There it is. You see, and I didn't even get to watch your interview with him, but that's a fact. That's a fact. Whatever the winning professionals used for that year, the next 2 years we hear in the songs. So
we just got
we got 1 day is kind of draining.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then Billy said the hardest thing was that he had to try and switch off seeing the previous year's interpretation of that song. He's like, oh, this song reminds me of them. Okay, don't think about that thing. Try and think of it objectively from this new interpretation of it. I really wanted to ask you about the social dancing experience in New York, because New York is known around the world as one of the hubs of salsa, mambo, like specifically. So like in my experience, there's like people really talk a lot about Mexico and they talk a lot about Italy and they talk a lot about New York. So as a New Yorker who when you're in the mood to dance, you can dance 7 nights a week, every day of the year. How does it feel going from like a New York dance experience and then going and social dancing overseas in different countries?
It's refreshing. One, the energy changes. Everybody's more eager or happy, whether that's because you're from there or not from there, or they wanted to meet you or not meet you. But the energy is always inviting. And when I see people who are eager to dance, that's really all I care about. Bottom line.
How did you find it in Australia coming from New York and living in Australia from a social dancing perspective?
I loved my time in Australia. The thing is that sometimes we're teaching until like sometimes 10 or 11 at night, and when I teach, I go full out. I don't hold back, and I get
Mm,
just as tired as everybody else. So I did not have a lot of energy afterwards to want to go social dancing. But the few times that I did go, I really enjoyed it. You know, people are very nice, respectful, and
mhm.
again, they're eager to dance.
Do you have a similar experience when you go to Japan and stay in Japan? Because I know in Japan you're training like a lot because you have to condense like months worth of training into like weeks.
Right. And because remember I said whenever we prepare the students for the competition that I make them run the choreography before I leave.
Hmm.
So we usually go to at least one or two socials while I'm there. And I think there is, yeah, it's great. You know, people are always dancing, they're nice. And here's the thing, they usually make a line for dancing. And I asked Maddie the last time to count how many, so I knew how to pace myself. And there was 42
Yep.
ladies lined up
At once.
at once. And I felt bad because
Out the door of the venue. There's a line to get in,
around the
and
around the
then people,
entire
and
around
then they line
around
up
the
again to
entire
dance with Franklin.
around the entire social they were lined up, and I felt bad because other gentlemen were asking the ladies to dance, and they would say, oh no, I'm waiting to dance with him. So I was
That's
dancing
funny.
roughly with four ladies every song, so that
Oh wow.
so that I can like go through it a little faster.
Yeah, and that was in Tokyo.
That was in Tokyo, yeah.
Okay.
And
Because
it's
they have a
happened.
huge population, right? They have a population that's maybe similar in numbers to New York, right? They're talking like
It's big.
10 million or something.
It's about 14 million now. Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of people. What's the scene like in Japan? Like they have competitions in Japan as well, I'm sure. But then I think because of dancers like Marty and definitely your influence, the Japanese dancing scene is starting to become more international. Like now Japan is represented at the summit.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, Japan has always had competitions, or they go to competitions that are in Asia.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, I believe this. I think when they saw Mari, who started taking her students and representing Japan to the highest level of honor,
Mm,
we definitely saw more people going to competitions from Japan.
mm.
And
Had a
the second,
tiny, we had a tiny bit of lag there. Could you go back? I got the last part when you said highest honor in dance.
right. So I still believe that because of Mari and bringing students, and not only bringing them but being successful at it too,
Mm,
I think it inspired all the people from Japan to start going to the competitions that she was attending.
mm. I think it's very admirable from her perspective because she's stepping into a very big and well-established arena already. Like I know Australians are a super competitive nation, so we've had people going to the worlds for a long time. So the stepping stones to get to the worlds from an Australian dancing perspective is a lot easier because people have done it and you can refer to people if you need advice or constructive criticism about how to go about it. But then from a Japanese perspective, like Marty sort of pioneered it and you had a massive hand in that. So she's sort of I think she's the first person to place or the first person to make finals from Japan, and that's an incredible achievement. Like, and then people from around the world now recognize and give respect to Marty because she's the first person from Japan to be doing well at the Worlds at a very prestigious competition. Like, no one could fault her on her journey or what she's done, and now she's inspired like the next generation of competitors.
Yes, Mari, Mari, it was like she was like me also in the beginning. She was not really into competition,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also a very smart person, and she saw the benefit of competition, not
Mm,
only for her students but for herself. And it's true, you know. Just recently we competed again and again. She lives in Japan and I live in New York, and we had about 6 weeks total to get ready for a professional on-two showcase. And at the end of the day, we came in third, which to us feels more than third because of the huge distance that we have to
mm,
withstand. And ultimately, because you push yourself so much harder and you make
Mm-hmm.
every rehearsal that much more productive,
Mm.
it makes you value competition that much more.
Mm.
But we all got started because Anya's the one that she planted it in my head.
Mm. What's Marty? Marty has a school in Tokyo, right? What's her school like?
Her school is based in Nagoya, which is where she's from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of a city neighboring Osaka.
Okay.
I think via car you can do it in maybe an hour and 20 minutes or maybe less.
Okay.
Uh, it's a nice school. It has a big size compared to a lot of locations in Japan, and she has a lot of loyal students who are, again, very eager to learn, and they know that she's really
Mm.
good, and she is really good at what she is.
Mm.
So she has a studio, and it's a very positive atmosphere.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you had
But
to, if
not
you had
only
to give,
that, sorry to cut you off. It's not only that. Mari has teams and she teaches all over Japan, and she's constantly going from one city to the other nonstop. So it's funny because she says she's homeless, and it's true. It's true. She's staying in a
yeah,
hotel. She's staying at her friend's house. She's
yeah,
sleeping on the train to get to the next location. And this, I don't think I know a professional that works harder than Mari does,
wow,
to be honest.
busy girl.
Yeah, very, very, and very dedicated and very professional, and the ethics are just up there.
Mm. If you had to give people advice about improving their social dancing, what would you tell them?
Social dancing, that this social dancing has so many layers.
Mm.
So it's tough to give one particular advice. But like I said earlier, when you asked me about three things about competition, that I said get into competition, social dancing, take classes with multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think when it comes to social dancing, you just have to social dance.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to speak from a personal perspective and point of view. Yes, I learned a lot of material in school while taking classes from teachers and whatnot and congresses, but it wasn't until I actually got on the floor and I started getting comfortable with who I was as a dancer that I started growing. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't applying what I learned in school. I was improvising. So for me, my advice personally is play with music. And even if you have to look like a fool because you're trying something that you've never tried before, so what? It's not a
Mm.
competition. You're dancing for yourself and your partner. So if you look like a fool in a couple of bars, or maybe the entire duration of the song, that will serve as an experience for you to evaluate yourself and say, okay, that worked, that didn't work, or that felt good, or that did not feel good.
Mm. Okay. And then because dancing socially is very different to dancing freestyle at a competition, so are there changes that you implement into your dancing to be better suited to freestyle competition or more appropriate?
Absolutely. The thing with competition is that you need to stand out. If the
Mm.
judges are not looking at you, you're practically not competing. You're just dancing. You're occupying space. And I don't mean to sound rude, but that's really what it is. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
come on the floor with this presence and posture and confidence that will make anybody look at you. And the only way
Yeah.
you can do that is by committing to every move that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas social dancing, you can chill and you can go more casual, and that's okay because that's what social dancing is.
Mm.
But I'm constantly practicing when I social dance, being a little flashy because I
Yeah.
know up until this past competition that I was going to be competing in freestyle.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you guys have Jack and Jill in America? Do you have Jack and Jill competitions?
Yes, we do, but Jack and Jill's here have changed over the years, and I'm pretty sure that if you ask this to Billy, he will go more in depth into it.
Yeah.
Jack and Jill's used to be actually respectable competitions,
Mm-hmm.
but now in USA is and now even parts of Canada is used more as entertainment,
Yeah.
where shirts start coming off and people and people are on the floor doing stuff that are not really dance. So you know it's for entertainment
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So they don't hold. I don't think they hold the same because I seen it in Australia and I liked it.
Yeah.
And in Australia, it's more about the dance and again being a dancer.
One thing that Choa does really well, I think, is he has it separate. So the Jack and Jill aspect of the competition is its own separate thing. And then as an entertainment thing towards the end of a night, he'll have an artist battle, and that's the more entertainment based
Right. So that's
part of
very
the
clever
competition.
on Chava's part.
Mm.
Because no, he also had the professional freestyle.
Hmm.
Then he had Jack and Jill, and then he had the artist battle,
Yeah.
which to me was the cherry on top, because now you're showing the students that it's okay to let go and be ridiculous and
Mm.
have fun, and we're all silly at some point. So he does that really well.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed your battle with Josie and Davidius and Victoria last year.
Well, first of all, they cheated on us because they switched us.
Yeah.
But that was the fun of the jacket. You're like, you know what? We're competing, so we're going for it.
Yeah, it was really entertaining.
But
And
can we
and I
also talk
love
about can we also talk about when they pair Mario against Oliver and Sharon? They're like that was epic. That was
it
epic.
was seriously one of the highlights of my year. And I spoke with Mario a few weeks ago and I interviewed him and I laughed. Like
Yeah,
that guy is like a one man band. He's so entertaining, like from a dancing
absolutely.
perspective, like incredible.
Yeah, incredible
Um
dancer.
yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to look at that clip, it's on YouTube. I think it's under like Oliver Pineda and Mario Acosta freestyle battle or something like that. But it was in Australia, and like Franklin and I were there, and like I've watched that video like 100 times. Like it's so funny.
Really, really funny. We also did something here in I don't know if you know about this. They did another kind of artist battle here in Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Salsa Congress. So basically, they will pull all of the professionals on Sunday night,
Yeah.
and 1 hour before they give you one song, and
Okay.
within that song, within that hour, you have to come up with an entire choreography for a group of 12 to 20 people.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then you go on the stage on the main dance floor. Everybody gets off, and then you have the this side doing their choreography. They finish, and then the other side does it. It was incredible, and by far one of the highlights in my dance career.
And this is you're getting a collection of people that are at the top of their game from a dancing perspective, and things like this never happen because there's so many conflicting interests from rival dance schools or different competition platforms, or location would be a huge one because you would never get artists from all over different countries and parts of your own country to get together and collaborate. So it's a good opportunity to
Yeah,
see what can actually be created by these people.
1 hour, and it was mind-blowingly good.
Is it online? Can people check that out?
I would have to look for it, but I think it is online.
Yeah.
It
I
was
know
really good.
that there's a festival in Europe. I think it's called Fuji. There's some Fuji festival, and every year they have this exact thing. So all of the artists get together and they get one song each, and they have like 20 or so. And what they do, which I really like, is if it's like if you have partnerships that are always together. So Harold and Regan are booked. They split Harold and Regan up, so they support a different team each. So I really like that because you have
Yeah,
like in previous years, it's always Team Terry from Terry and Cecile and Mo Flex, another guy. But they split Terry and Cecile up. They split Antonio and Jasmina Berardi up. They split
nice.
Lisa and Samuel. So normally these people that would have an edge because they work with that artist year in year out, and they know their tricks and their combos and all of their things, like
Right.
they're forced then to be more creative, and I think that's a really interesting way of doing it.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
think it's really entertaining, and what comes out is like incredible, right?
Absolutely, yeah. For us, the artists that are there is really the cherry on top.
I think it's a really nice way to end a congress, especially a competition, because competitions can be so serious, and it's a really nice reminder that why we maybe started dancing in the first place, right? It's more lighthearted, it's more fun, it's more entertaining. It's not the stress and pressure of working towards something from a competition perspective. This is like your time to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that,
Mm.
that they do that kind of things, because again, it shows the students, let go, be human.
Yeah. It's nice too to showcase people. One thing that I really like about what Chuba did at his competition is he really highlights the national artists, because every country has their own artists that are special, right? People that have worked really hard, people that work internationally or do really good work nationally, and he makes it a priority to showcase these artists to their students in a light they probably haven't seen before. And it's always really nice to have people from an international perspective like yourself or like Avidius and Victoria who were there at the same time. But I think it sends a really good message to the dance community.
Absolutely, yeah. That was very well done
All
by
right.
Chava.
It was yeah, it was good. But maybe you can join us for judging or something in future years back in
If they
Australia.
have me, I'll be there. Yeah,
Okay, looking
absolutely.
forward to it. Franklin, I know you have a time constraint, so we're going to wrap things up. But thank you so much for your time. It's been so nice to catch up with you and talk with you about all these things. Thank you so much for your perspective and your input.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Really fun. Let's do
And
it
we'll do
again
it again
sometime.
another time.
Yeah, hopefully face to face when we can go out and go dancing or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
It'll be
bro. Let's
nice.
do it.
Okay. Love to your
Awesome.
family and friends and your partner, and stay safe.
Thank you so much. You too.
Okay. See you later, bro.
Out.